Your silent faith just moved mountains. Heaven will show you why soon. God says, you thought nothing happened when you prayed. You were wrong, the earth shifted under your silence. It begins so quietly you almost miss it, a breath between seconds, a pause in the noise of ordinary life. You were not performing miracles or speaking in fire, you were simply believing when no one was watching. And yet, somewhere far beyond your understanding, foundations moved. The mountains didn't explode or crumble, they simply obeyed. Archangel Michael steps into the dim light of your room. He's not blazing with glory this time. His presence feels like still water, calm, but impossibly deep. Faith without noise, he says, is the purest form of power. It doesn't impress crowds, it instructs heaven. His armor reflects the faint glow of your lamp, turning shadows into small halos. When you refuse to give up, he continues, heaven recalibrated entire timelines to match your endurance. God says, when I asked you to wait, I wasn't testing you, I was protecting what would greet you. You remember the nights when your prayers sounded like echoes bouncing off cold walls, when your tears fell without response. What you didn't see was how every one of those tears landed as a seed in unseen soil. Now, under the surface, things are breaking open, quietly, powerfully, without spectacle. Mountains are shifting in places you'll never stand, creating paths for blessings that would have been crushed under haste. Michael walks with you to the window. Outside, the world looks unchanged, trees still, stars steady. Watch closer, he whispers. The wind moves differently now, carrying direction instead of randomness. In the distance, you see lights flicker in homes that once held despair. Those, Michael says, are the first ripples. Your persistence gave someone else permission to hope again. God says, the miracle was not in what you gained. It was in what you sustained. You close your eyes. In your mind's eye, you see fault lines glowing beneath the surface of the earth, not destruction, but redirection. Paths rearranging, obstacles moving a fraction of an inch at a time. It's not loud enough for history to notice, but heaven is keeping score. Michael's voice deepens, like thunder contained inside calm air. When people mocked your patience, they thought stillness was weakness. But faith is not a storm, it's gravity. It keeps worlds in place. His words vibrate in your chest like a secret heartbeat. Now heaven will show you why it took so long, because mountains don't move fast, they move forever. God says, stay calm, beloved. The movement you can't feel is already finished. The night grows softer. The lamp flickers once, then steadies. Outside, the stars seem slightly closer. You realize it's not the sky that moved, it's your soul that rose. Every quiet moment of belief lifted it higher than before. You smile without reason, because reason isn't needed anymore. The shift has already happened. God says, tomorrow will look the same, but you won't be the same watching it. When heaven starts revealing the why. God says, I never show the reason while you're still bleeding, I wait until the wound has learned to breathe. The next morning arrives without ceremony. No trumpet of angels, no radiant sign, just sunlight brushing across the floor like a gentle explanation. You make your coffee, water the plant that somehow survived your neglect, and realize that even the smallest things feel newly synchronized. Time itself seems to nod at you, as if whispering, "Now you see." Archangel Michael waits near the window again, presence folded into daylight so gracefully that you almost mistake him for the light itself. "It's beginning," he says, eyes reflecting the steady rhythm of the world outside. Heaven reveals slowly so gratitude can keep up. You step into the day and notice how familiar places look subtly rearranged. The neighbor who once frowned now waves. A letter arrives, the opportunity that was long delayed, written in ink you had already stopped expecting. Even the way the wind moves through the trees sounds like reassurance. The world didn't change overnight, your alignment did. God says, "When hearts stay patient, I bend circumstances toward them until everything fits without force." Later, you pause at a crosswalk where a child drops her ice cream. Before you can move, another stranger kneels to help her, buying a new one. A small act, invisible to most, but the air around it glows. Michael leans close. "This is the echo," he murmurs. "Your faith created a current. It teaches kindness by example, though no one knows the source." You walk on, heart swelling with quiet comprehension. For the first time, you understand that the miracle isn't a single event, it's a chain reaction. One faithful silence becomes 1,000 gentle decisions in other lives. Heaven has been revealing the why all along, through ordinary goodness amplified by endurance. God says, the reward for silent faith is not applause, it's participation. Evening returns scented with rain. You stand at your doorway watching drops slide down glass like liquid light. Each one seems to carry a story, friendships restored, fears released, courage borrowed. The more you watch, the more you feel that the world is conspiring for peace, and that your quiet persistence was one of its first instructions. Michael places a hand on your shoulder. "They will never know how much your stillness steadied them," he says softly. "But I will." His eyes carry both command and comfort. "Keep walking in this rhythm. The mountains have already moved, now the valleys are rising to meet you." God says, every unseen effort finds its moment to be visible. You are entering yours. You close your eyes, inhaling the scent of wet earth and grace. Somewhere, distant thunder rolls, not a warning, but applause muffled by clouds. You smile, and the room brightens with the reflection of someone finally understanding the slow language of miracles. God says, "Sleep peacefully tonight. Tomorrow the evidence will speak." The evidence speaks. God says, "What I build in secret eventually takes form in sight." You are about to walk through your own proof. Dawn comes dressed in silver fog. You rise before the alarm, not from worry but from the strange calm of expectancy. Nothing dramatic has changed, yet something waits in the air, the way a held breath turns into a first word. You open the door and step outside, the street hums like a pulse beneath your feet. Archangel Michael stands across the way, hands clasped behind his back, watching the city wake. "Listen," he says. You hear it then, snippets of ordinary grace. A father telling his son you've got this, a neighbor leaving coffee on a doorstep, the sound of someone humming instead of arguing. These, Michael explains, are the first fruits of invisible labor. Your faith taught the world a quieter language. You walk together toward the marketplace. People who once rushed now greet one another by name. The woman who used to close her stall early now gives away leftovers with a smile. The man who always argued over prices laughs easily. It's as if the entire square has exhaled the same prayer. God says, I planted patience in one heart so that many hearts could breathe easier. At the fountain's edge a stranger stops you. I don't know why, she says, but every time I see you, I remember to hope again. Her words land softly yet ring louder than any sermon. Michael nods. That, he whispers, is evidence. Later, rain begins, not harsh, but steady, washing the dust from roofs and trees. You tilt your face upward, unafraid of getting wet. Each drop feels like a confirmation letter written in water, approved. Complete. Seen. You think back on the long years of silence, the prayers that seemed to vanish. Now every raindrop answers them. God says, delay was never denial. It was design. Evening settles warm and gold. You light a single candle on your table, the same candle that once marked loneliness, now a beacon of abundance. Across town, other candles appear in windows, neighbors copying what they witnessed without knowing why. The light travels house to house until the whole street glows like a constellation. You realize that proof doesn't shout, it multiplies. Michael's armor glimmers with reflection from those small flames. Mountains have moved, he says. Now hearts are learning how to stand where the mountains used to be. He glances at you, pride hidden behind serenity. The miracle needed your endurance to stay intact, that is why you were chosen to wait. God says, the season of explanation has begun. Those who wondered why you kept believing will soon wonder how. You smile, not from triumph but from relief. The waiting was worth it. The evidence is all around, not in wealth or applause, but in the way the world has softened. You close your eyes, whisper a thank you that feels like a promise to keep believing even when proof fades again. God says, rest in what you see, but live for what you'll never have to prove. The candle flickers, outside, the rain eases into stars. Somewhere deep in that hush, the earth itself sighs, the sound of mountains settling into new shape. The mountains remember. God says, every mountain that moved still remembers the hand that believed. The evening arrives quiet and bright at once, the kind of light that makes everything look slightly forgiven. You walk the familiar path beyond town where hills roll like the backs of sleeping giants. Grass bends under a kind wind, and somewhere a hawk turns slow circles, tracing the shape of patience in the sky. Archangel Michael appears beside you, no sword, no armor, just presence. Do you hear it? He asks. You listen. The ground hums faintly, as if the earth itself is singing under its breath. Those are the mountains, he says. They remember who prayed. You kneel, pressing a palm to the soil. Warmth answers back, a pulse older than language, younger than fear. Every hardship, every hour of silence, every night you chose to stay gentle instead of bitter has settled into this rhythm. Faith didn't erase weight, it redistributed it. The very places that once blocked your path have become the ridges that protect it. God says, when I move obstacles, I do not discard them, I repurpose them into shelter. You see it now, valleys formed where despair once stood, streams cutting new directions through stone. Life has learned your endurance by heart. Michael walks ahead, running his hand along the rock face. These cliffs, he murmurs, once laughed at your prayers. Now they echo them. He steps back, gestures for you to look closer. In the evening light, faint carvings appear, lines shaped by wind and time, your story written in the language of erosion. Proof that faith leaves fingerprints even on granite. A breeze rises, carrying the scent of rain and something sweeter, hope turned tangible. Michael smiles. The mountains remember, but they do not mourn. They bow. You watch as fog drifts across the peaks like incense in a cathedral. The world feels newly consecrated. God says, every place that resisted you now defends you. Walk without fear. You descend the path, feeling lighter though the climb was never reversed. Behind you, the mountains glow faintly, their edges softened by dusk. Each step downward feels like a benediction, each breath a thank you translated into motion. At the valley floor, the first stars blink awake. You whisper into the cooling air, I still believe. The echo returns not as repetition but as harmony. Michael's voice threads through it, then the work continues. God says, rest in the shelter you built by trusting me. The earth remembers, and so do I. And somewhere beyond sight, the mountains exhale, content, steady, alive with the memory of faith that once dared to move them. The Valley of Peace. God says, after mountains move, valleys learn how to bloom. Morning settles like silk over the land. Mist rises from the river, curling through grass that now grows where shadows once ruled. You step into the valley barefoot, the soil feels healed, almost tender. The air tastes of beginning. Every bird call sounds deliberate, as if the whole world is tuning to one note, peace. Archangel Michael walks beside you again, his presence less a vision now and more a feeling, a constant stillness that moves when you move. This, he says, is the reward of endurance, not a throne, but a home. Faith was never meant to make you famous, it was meant to make you fruitful. He gestures toward the hills that once towered like threats. Now their slopes cradle the valley instead of looming over it. Even the high places have learned gentleness, he adds. God says, I do not erase battles, I turn them into boundaries that keep your peace safe. You wander to the center of the plain where a spring bubbles up from beneath rock. It wasn't here before, it was released when the ground shifted. You kneel and cup the water in your hands. It is cold, sweet, and startlingly clear. Each sip tastes like the absence of fear. Michael kneels beside you, dipping his fingertips. Every tear you shed helped carve this, he murmurs. Nothing was wasted. Heaven recycles sorrow into refreshment. Around you, people begin to appear, the neighbors, the friends, even the former skeptics. They come quietly, carrying baskets of seed and instruments for building. No one asks permission. They simply know they belong. Someone begins a song, others hum along. You realize that the valley has become a meeting place, a new center of gravity for hearts that once wandered. God says, when peace takes root in one, it calls others to dwell. Michael watches them work, pride tempered with reverence. This is what heaven wanted all along, he says. Not spectacle, continuity. You moved mountains so others could plant gardens. He turns to you. The story doesn't end here, it settles here. Let the valley do the speaking now. Evening finds you beneath a canopy of lanterns strung from branch to branch. Children chase fireflies, elders share bread, laughter drifts like incense. The air hums with contentment deeper than celebration, a peace that doesn't need applause to prove itself. God says, this is the sound of answered prayer, not thunder, but harmony. You close your eyes, listening to the murmur of the river and the steady rhythm of distant wings overhead. A whisper moves through the valley, perhaps wind, perhaps blessing. The mountains remember, but the valley lives. When you open your eyes again, Michael has faded into the starlight. Only his voice remains, guard this calm with kindness. Every sunrise will borrow its tone from you. God says, sleep, beloved. The world is breathing easier because you believed. And the valley, shimmering under moonlight, breathes with you, steady, eternal, healed. The seeds of tomorrow. God says, every piece you plant becomes a place where someone else can begin. The valley wakes under silver dew. Mist drifts low and tender, it smells of grass and bread and something holier than both, continuation. The once barren hills cradle new gardens now. Children run through them laughing, their voices scattering birds instead of fear. You watch from a wooden bench by the spring. The water hums the same note it always has, but now you can hear harmony, the echo of generations learning calm from your quiet. Archangel Michael appears as light between leaves, no armor, just simplicity. The ground remembers how to yield, he says. Every act of faith changed its chemistry. Even the soil believes again. He kneels, presses a seed into the mud. It glows once, then disappears. This, he whispers, is how heaven continues without miracles, through hands that have learned gentleness. God says, the storms you endured wrote instructions for future rain. By midday, the valley fills with familiar faces and new ones. Families carry baskets, plant fruit trees, build small homes along the stream. No one speaks of the past much anymore, they live its lesson instead. The laughter that rises has depth, the kind that understands loss and chooses joy anyway. You walk among them, offering advice, water, a smile. Someone asks how you kept hope when the world mocked it. You answer, by remembering that silence is not absence. They nod, repeating it like a proverb, passing it down as if it were scripture. You realize wisdom travels best when it no longer feels owned. God says, what you carried alone has become community. Evening comes golden. Lanterns bloom across the valley like stars descending to rest. Music swells, nothing grand, just the hum of gratitude woven through conversation. You sit beside the spring, watching reflections of faces you love dancing across the water. The air feels full enough to touch. Michael stands behind you, wings open just wide enough to catch the last of the light. You have done what few manage, he says. You've turned testimony into terrain. The generations ahead will not remember the battles, they will walk on their victories. He pauses, voice softening. That is all heaven ever wanted from faith, continuity. God says, the future is not waiting to be built, it is already growing where your prayers once fell. Night slips in quietly, the kind that protects rather than hides. Children fall asleep on blankets. The river keeps time with their dreams. You close your eyes, and the valley's heartbeat merges with your own. God says, rest now. Tomorrow's hands are ready. And far above, unseen but certain, another sunrise is already forming, because peace, once planted, never truly sleeps.